Welcome back to our laboratory of the endless exploration of Chernobyl technologies. Welcome back to our laboratory of the endless exploration of Chernobyl technologies. So we today have for you something really legendary, and in this tiny box we have actually one of the smallest radiation dosimeters ever made. It was produced here in Ukraine in 1991, so it is one of the earliest post-Chernobyl devices, and it's quite cool. So let's look inside, unbox it, try it in action, and also, of course, I will share with you some amazing historical details. It is called BIRI-2, and this word is actually an acronym which stands for a KEYCHAIN indicator of ionizing radiation model 2. So inside the box first we find a tiny wall charger and a short manual for it. Well, the charger was included only for this second model, while the previous one still used regular batteries. Next, there is a manual for our keychain and the device itself, and as you can see it is really tiny and weighs literally nothing, so yes, you indeed can carry it along with your keys. I completely love this sticker, and the print is quite interesting, it is sort of embossed. It was produced by a small private company named Yavor, based in the city of Chernobyl in West Ukraine, and it is quite an interesting historical detail. Because while at that moment, quite formally, Ukraine was still in the USSR, it was already permitted to run private businesses. First, that started as cooperative entities, and since mid-1990 it was legally possible to register private companies. And that actually gave a big boost of production of various dosimetry devices, because there still was that huge Chernobyl influenced demand, and Soviet industry with its centralized approach was completely unable to fulfill it. So this is how such interesting devices appeared. So BIRI-2 is based on this small SBM-10 Geiger tube, and this cross approximately marks its geometric center. Well, it's quite good to know, because for any dosimeter, as closer the radiation source to the center, as more accurate the readings will be. But there is no any display, and inside we have just a sound beeper, and atop there is this red LED which gives the visual signal, and that's all. All that had to be powered by two rechargeable D0.06 cells. You install them here, and in the cover there is a built-in power switch. According to the user manual, it takes 24 hours to fully charge them. Well, that's quite long. But anyway, those cells are no longer produced, and actually there is no direct analog of them. But luckily we can use any 1.5V button batteries, for example LR44. So now when I turn it on we have one beep and one flash of the LED, and then it starts to make this ticking sound which indicates normal operation. The manual states that the device can measure from 10 to 3000 microradians per hour, so there is this tiny table which says less than 12 signals per minute refers to normal ambient radiation. Well, in Ukraine, with these units, it's up to 30 microradians per hour. In your country, however, it may be a little bit different. Then 12 to 24 signals means 60 to 120 microradians per hour, 24 to 60 is 120 to 300, an infinite signal is more than 3000. At first glance this might look primitive and even somewhat hard to use, but to my mind it's pretty much opposite. And back in the day my instructor in the Chernobyl zone told me one very important thing, that one of the most important skills is to get out from contaminated place in a proper moment. And probably you'll understand me much better if you'll take a little field test of this thing. So this is the operation of it in Kiev, where we have on average around 0.15 microsieverts per hour, and this is the test at the town of Chernobyl. Well, this town specifically doesn't feature any really notable contamination nowadays, so levels here are just a little bit elevated. But what will happen if you try it in Pripyat? Well, there is an infamous contaminated piece of metal of unknown origin laying near the central shopping center. There is more than 70 microsieverts per hour if you measure it really close, and a massive density of beta emission. Well, I didn't come really close, so I'm not using gloves to cut out beta, but as you can see our device acts already very different. And this is what its operation looks like just in a few meters away. So from the practical point of view, sometimes when you work in areas which feature patchwork like contamination, like this one, it's quite enough just to know average grade of levels around you. As we say, okay, irritating, burning and get out. So a simple sound indicator which will draw your attention to the ready change is very convenient for this. So back in the day, when we have been guiding people in Pripyat along with professional dosimeters, we used this early ex-Soviet indicator, which is quite similar to our KEYCHAIN, but it has a larger SBM20 tube and was somewhat more sensitive. Because before all, it is all about the actual doses of radiation you receive, not levels you deal with. And think about that as about speedometer in your car. Say you drive 50 miles per hour for one single hour and you will pass roughly 50 miles. But if you drive for 15 minutes, you reach a distance roughly of 12 and a half. Same here, imagine you have a level, say, of 216 microsieverts per hour, but if you spend there just 1 minute, your dose will be roughly 3.6. Well, not great, not terrible, but the most important is not to exceed an annual dose limit, and in Ukraine it is 1 millisievert per 1 year for civilian population, so every dose you receive goes towards this limit as a coin in the pig bank. For professionals it is more complex and their limits are higher, but the principle is always the same. Returning to our KEYCHAIN, nowadays in Ukraine a newer generation of indicators is produced. For instance, Agent R by Lviv-based company Ecotest, and it has already a few LEDs. Well, the device is quite expensive, but it is more sensitive. We tested it once in Pripyat and it was really good. Okay, now it is time to take a look inside. So it appeared that, similar to the charger, it is not possible to disassemble it just so, because it is sealed. But I carefully managed to break internal plastic pins which hold two parts together, and this way I could open it. Later I will glue it and it will be alright. So this is the SBM10 Geiger tube. Well, it is quite good, it is not soldered, so if something, it is always possible to change it. Next, in the center, there is this tiny custom-made transformer, which through these two diodes and this capacitor provides the detector with 400 volts for operation. The rest of components you see here form a simple circuit which processes the detector's impulses and turn them into the flashes of LED and sound signals. It's all made on KT315 transistors, and what is interesting about them is that those are very first Soviet transistors made with planar technology. You can find them in virtually any Soviet electronics, because since 1968 they were introduced, they were produced more than 7 billion of them. But they have those flat pins, so honestly it was quite a pain to solder them. Well, I do not see here any sound beeper. Well, I guess it is mounted on another side of the PCB, but frankly I would not risk to take it out, because in this case I would need to remove this transformer, and as you can see, wires here are super thin. Anyways, even from what I see so far, to my mind this design is close to genial. So this is it. If you want more, don't forget to check our Patreon page, because there you will find translated documentation for this device, as well as a lot of unique archive materials we translated to English with our commentaries, as well as insight into our work in the Chernobyl zone, its history, technology and so on. Link is in the description below. In the meantime, get ready for a new episode. See you next time.
Jesus.